Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Zack Olinger. In this podcast series, I talk about relationships. Now, I know, as a man, you may not want to talk about relationships, or you may even tell me that the relationship that you're in is already pretty good. But I'm going to invite you to consider this. Could you be a little bit more fulfilled in the relationship that you have? I would like to have you consider that there may be other ways to kind of see the conflicts that are truly just unnecessary that we all experience in a different light. And if you're open to receiving or just giving me a little bit of your time, then I look forward to my guests and I inspiring you to become a man that can have more freedom, less conflict, and more pleasure in their relationships. Thanks for joining me.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on another episode of the Real Zack Olinger. And today my guest is Emily, and she works with, she's a financial coach that works with engaged couples and newlyweds on finances. And today she's going to talk to us about an annual conflict, as she put it, that she has with her and her husband around holidays and things around that. So just want to say thank you, Emily, for joining me today, and I'll just hand it over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So a little backstory, my husband and I have been married for, I always forget, I guess it'll be 9 years in August. So, excuse me, almost 9 years. And every year, starting in probably early December at the latest, sometimes a little bit earlier than that, we start having the conversation like pretty much everybody else has of what are we doing for Christmas and New Year's, and sometimes Thanksgiving creeps into that depending on when we start the conversation. And I always joke that it's our annual argument because it typically ends up turning into more than just a conversation. I know part of what goes into that, I grew up always traveling to see family around Christmas. My dad would often take the 2 weeks off around Christmas and New Year's, and we'd spend a week with one set of grandparents and a week with another set of grandparents because they lived 3 or 4 hours apart. So that was relatively easy to do. We would either fly in or drive in, depending on where we were living at the time, and spend significant time with family, and cousins would be there and aunts and uncles would be there. So holidays to me equal family and spending lots of time with family. Mm-hmm. My husband, on the other hand, grew up as a pastor's son, and pastors don't get to travel at Christmas because pastors have to work on Christmas, and pastors have to work a lot on Christmas and Christmas Eve. So for him, the holidays are staying home with your immediate family and having your immediate family traditions. They didn't have big family gathering traditions because they had that restriction. And so it's gotten dramatically better. There usually aren't any tears anymore. So it's gotten a lot better there, but there's still generally some headbutting about what are we doing when, and are we seeing both sides in the short period of time around Christmas and New Year's and all of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that as well, making plans for that. And yeah, it's always, that's a really good point about bringing up different traditions from different families, and what did you grow up with? What did you guys do? How did you do it? Yeah, I think that enters in all of intimate relationships, because what do they say when you get married? You're not just marrying the person, you're marrying the family as well, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's almost made harder for us in that we like spending time with both families. So it's not, and he's more of an introvert than I am, and so he's not as big on spending time with family as I am, but we don't even have we feel obligated to, but we don't really want to. It's like, well, but we like them, and I especially like them, and yeah.
Gotcha.
That added tension.
Yeah. Well, I guess then a natural question for me, and again, you can speak as much or as little to this as you'd like, is I'm just curious about how. Well, I know in the beginning, I'm assuming, but it sounds like in the beginning it was much more intense in a way, like where that was I could just kind of feel more of the tension around it. So what, how did that develop for you to like kind of make it like less tension filled? Like, were you like, it's better now? So like, what was the process like for you guys to kind of reach maybe maybe, I don't know if it's fully resolved because it seems like you still have the conversation, but like, how does it look now compared to what it did before? Like, and kind of how did it get there for you? If you don't mind sharing that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it has to do with time because, we've had now 8 Christmases that we've been married, that we've had the conversation. And so just sort of assuming that that's going to happen. And then knowing now where the other one is coming from, he knows that at some point I am going to bring up, what are we doing for Christmas? My mom is asking if we are coming and if so, when, or if they can come visit us. And I know that when I bring that up, because I'm always the one who brings it up, he is going to his initial instinct is going to be, let's just stay home. And so we know we're sort of we've already had that initial, at least layer or 2 of the conversation, because it's there. We've realized that over the years that we don't have the assumptions that we used to have of, I'm assuming we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, I'm assuming we're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So we've gotten rid of some of that and are able to communicate a little bit better and have sort of already taken a step towards the middle before the conversation even begins.
Gotcha. As another kind of just curiosity question, is it on like a rotation basis kind of a thing? I'm not even sure how you would work that out since there's like different sides of visiting different parts of the family, right?
We've tried to stay away from that because we don't want to get locked into, we spent Christmas with my family last year, so this year we have to spend Christmas with this family, or, well, we spent Thanksgiving with this family, so we have to spend Christmas with this family, and then we have this way. Yeah, we're trying to not get into that trap. As much as part of me likes the idea of just having it all set and it's all taken care of, that then what if, like, I have relatives who live in China. What if they're home like they were a couple of Thanksgivings ago, and what if that threw off the whole schedule? So we're trying to stay out of that, and both my parents and my in-laws are good at not trying to guilt trip us into that, which I am very lucky to have, because I know that is not the case for a lot of people.
That's true. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I thought about that after I asked the question. I was like, it sounds good in theory in the sense of like just kind of having it planned out, but at the same time, it's highly inflexible in the sense of like, well, what if, and he gave an example, and it's kind of like, because there's always those what ifs, like there's always the one-offs or the exceptions to the rule. Yeah, for sure.
I think for us, it's come down to also my husband understanding that my family, because his family knows him, my family will not be offended if he just sort of disappears for a couple hours, because like I said, he's pretty introverted. So if all of a sudden it's like, wait, where did Jacob go? Oh, he's probably just downstairs playing on his phone or playing on the Switch or listening to an audiobook, or there's too much talking about stuff that he doesn't really care about, or that he would be interested in, but there's just a lot of talking going on, because I have a sister, and my sister and I, when we get together, we talk a lot, go figure. So sometimes he just sort of disappears. And so for him to understand that that's fine, I'm not going to expect him to be there 24/7. My family is okay with him disappearing. So that's a little bit less pressure there. And then for me, trying to be okay with, and for the most part, I do better at this than I used to, not having to be like, we don't have to be with somebody on Christmas. Like, we could go visit the second week in December, and maybe that feels better for him, because then we're still at home for Christmas. We can still go to our church for Christmas Eve services and that kind of thing. But then I still get we had Christmas with family. We got to see family in the Christmas season, or maybe the second week in January, or having more flexibility as far as not the date, but just having that time. Because really, I mean, when it comes down to it, the date is important, but it's as much about the time and seeing family and having that time to, watch them open their gift rather than just over Zoom and eat cookies together and all of that. So realizing what's actually important about that time versus the day itself. And if that flexibility helps, then that's a pretty easy thing for me to do most of the time. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. Depending on how stressed I am. If I'm not very stressed, that's a really easy thing to do. If I'm really stressed, then it's not quite so easy.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that, the compromises, and I agree too that like it's about the sharing of the time and the memories and that kind of a thing, rather than like the date, so to speak. Yeah.
In 5 years, are we going to remember that we were there on December 12 versus December 25? Or are we going to remember that there was a blizzard and we got 3 feet of snow and we're a day late getting home or something? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
That would be a story.
Right.
Never actually happened, but that would be a good story.
It would be a memory, absolutely. And that's for the holidays. That's what I always go for as well. It's about showing the time and having the memories, Yeah. That's
trying to get down to what's actually important and what's the root of the resistance to going, or what's the root of the wanting to go. And the root of wanting to go for me is the time. So
yeah. So then so that's an annual kind of like negotiation or compromise on the time. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And we usually figure something out, or we just make everybody come here, which he doesn't mind quite as much, because then he can run away to his place rather than running away at somebody else's place. So
right. That's true. Yeah, I guess I forgot about that as well. That's always an option. Maybe not always, but it is an option to like have people come to you too. Yeah. And so I guess like again, just those, because I just envisioned these kind of interactions like happening as you were going through that, like initially, and kind of experiencing that on like both ends. Like how, like, as you guys were coming to like learn that about each other, I guess, I'm curious about like what that felt like. I'm always curious about people's like feelings, and again, because it's vulnerable to share that. So again, if you do or don't want to like share that, that's fine. It's just, with feelings and emotions, that's really what drives a lot of things, like with our behaviors and like how we show up like in the moment, and things like that. And it doesn't always lead us to our best outcomes, but I'm just kind of curious about like what that kind of looked like on like both sides, because you did mention tears. So was they tears of like frustration, I guess, and things like that? So if you don't mind, like, again, that might be too personal, but I'm just that's where my mind is going. So
that's fine. So I have gotten considerably more comfortable with the fact that I cry easily, but I've always been someone who cries easily, whether it's at sad movies or whatever, but also out of frustration, out of anger, out of happiness. I hope pretty much any strong emotion, tears are not terribly unlikely. And my mom is the same way. So I did at least grow up with somebody else who did that all the time. But like I distinctly remember going back to college after the first extended break home, and I was crying, saying goodbye to my parents. And they're like, do you not want to go back? I was like, no, I want to go back. I'm just going to miss you. Because I did really want to go back. I loved college. I loved my friends. I missed my friends after not seeing them for, 5 days. But when you're used to spending every day and then you don't, I wanted to go back, but there were tears. And so that's not terribly uncommon. And my husband's gotten more used to that in me as well. It's like, just because there are tears doesn't mean A, that it's bad, and B, that he needs to comfort me or whatever. It just means that I'm having strong emotions, and that's how I express my strong emotions. So a lot of the time it was frustration, because he, not in a bad way, but he can be stubborn is sort of a negative way to put it, but stubborn, and this is what I think, and he's blunt. He just sort of lays it out there, this. And I'm much more, well, let's look at all the sides and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, but we could do that. Let me throw out all of the 16 million options that my brain has been thinking about for the past 3 weeks as I've been prepping for this conversation that you don't know I've been prepping for. So then when he says, I don't want to do that, then I'm like, but I just spent 3 weeks preparing for this conversation, thinking through all the options and thinking through the things that I thought maybe you would go for, and now you're just shutting it down. So working through that, maybe don't spend 3 weeks prepping for the conversation. And I can't obviously speak for him, but I'm assuming on his side, sort of, like I said, preparing that he knows sometime this conversation is going to be had. And he's learned to be a little bit more flexible, just like I've learned to be a little bit more flexible and not get, oh, do I still get frustrated? Absolutely. Like, but if I worked this out maybe 2 days ahead of time, it hasn't been 3 weeks, but I had this idea and I thought it would work really well. So here's my idea. And now you're poking all the holes in my beautiful idea that I thought would be a good compromise and I thought you would go for. And now I have to start over, and not necessarily start over, but you don't want to do that. And so where can we get to that'll work for both of us and all of that. So yeah, definitely frustration. I don't think there's ever really anger around that. But lots of frustration and not really any deeply hurt feelings, probably surface level hurt feelings of, I had this idea and you just shot it down. And so that doesn't feel very good, but yeah.
Gotcha. So then, I guess like another natural question for me is, since he knows the conversation is going to come up, does he ever offer to like work with you on finding the solution, or does he just wait for you to come to him with the solution and then that's when the conversation's had?
I don't think he's ever started the conversation, unless maybe if his excuse me, if his mom was asking about it or something. But even then, she usually asks me, because we chat more often than they do sometimes anyway. But I don't think he's ever started the conversation. Once the conversation is started, he'll offer ideas and that kind of thing. He's gotten better about it being a conversation and not it being a, you say something and I stop, or I say something and then you react or whatever. It's become more of a dialogue rather than a word constantly missing each other kind of a thing. But
right, yeah,
I don't think he's ever started the conversation, because he knows that I'll start it at some point, and so he's happy to just keep putting it off as long as possible, because maybe I'll forget and then we'll just get to stay home. So don't think that's going to happen.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can appreciate that. Yeah, I think a lot of guys would probably opt for that in a way. I guess too, just out of curiosity, it's all my questions are out of curiosity, but I always say that. As a habit. What would it be like for you if he chose to take the initiative? What if he came up with a plan and then came to you prior to you ever starting the conversation? I'm just curious what that would look like for you, or how you would respond to that.
That would be very interesting. It would probably depend on what he came with. If it seemed like it was I'm attempting to take both of us into consideration plan, or if it was just sort of throwing something out there because why not? But it would be interesting.
Okay. And
my guess is I would react positively, simply because taking the initiative is always kind of nice. But yeah.
Okay. And then with that, I guess given how you were framing the response there, I'm assuming that would it be accurate to say that if you took the initiative and it was taking you into consideration, that would be your biggest preference, like to be like, yes,
probably. Like if he came to me with something that he was happy with, that he thought would also make me happy, that would be great. Be like, oh wow, yeah, that sounds great, that sounds like a great compromise, and you came up with it, therefore you've already signed off on it, so we're magically done, no more argument. That's
what I was going to say. So then if that were to be the case, it's you probably don't envision having the same conversation, the same back and forth of like, the way it is now, so to speak. Like you wouldn't have to you would already be willing to just kind of sign off on it and be like, yeah, if you came up with it and it considers the things that that I would like to have considered, then all right,
great.
yeah.
Check that box, move on to the next one.
Right. Okay. No, see, I think that's a good example of
Hmm.
like in this particular podcast, what I like to do is if there's any male listeners, like to show an example of like, in a practical way of what it looks like to show up in a more masculine like type of energy, because like the masculine energy is the doing, and that kind of a thing. And so for what I'm hear from you is that you're the doer in that regard, like you show up and that's what you're kind of expected to do, so to speak. Like, like this is just something that you're concerned about, so I'm going to let you worry about it and you do the thing, right?
Hmm.
um However, as we just kind of explored, you would be receptive, right? Very much so, it seems, if your husband were to take on that role and be like, no, I'm going to take the initiative, I'm going to plan it out, I'm going to consider what you want, and I'll come up with a plan. And he could almost come to you and just say, this is what we're doing,
Hmm.
and you'd be like, all right, like,
Great. Yeah.
and
Uh,
and yet just the energy you had in that, great, you're like,
yeah.
yes. Like, thank you,
I know
yeah.
the term emotional labor can be a little bit charged. I know some people are resistant to that, but the if you swap that out for thinking of the behind the scenes work of all the planning and everything,
Hmm.
if it's something that's important to me and you put in the effort to do the behind the scenes work
Hmm.
so that I don't have to do it and I can just enjoy the thing that's important to me or do the thing that's important to me, that's huge. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it's important to me, so I'll do it because I have to, because if I don't do it, it doesn't get done, and therefore it's important, but it's important to me, so I will make the time to do it.
Hmm.
But if it if somebody else does that, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think I love that example as well, because I mean you can hear it in your voice with it, and I think that's just really important for guys to be aware of, because I think so many men are kind of passive and in their feminine, because I think it's just how we're modeled today, because we want to be considerate, we want to, like, be easy and be like, whatever you want, like, and that kind of a thing, or just kind of like, until it becomes an issue to us, then we might have an opinion, but
Right.
but until then we're going to be very passive and not really take the initiative, because we don't want to, maybe some of us don't want to seem like we're kind of being, you know rough or
Pushy or
pushy,
yeah.
yeah, that kind of a thing, or how to, maybe what's another word, like um yeah, just like
You want to
like
make sure that your partner also
yeah,
feels empowered to make decisions. Therefore,
right, uh,
you are a strong woman. You can make your decisions. I
right.
trust you, which is great. And
Hmm.
you should believe that your partner is a strong woman, and you should believe that they can make decisions. But sometimes it's nice to have somebody who can also make decisions and
Yeah,
also
yeah,
do those things.
yeah, we don't, yeah, to not be like a dictator and just kind of be
Yeah,
like in it, right?
right.
So yeah, I think it's so important to call that out, because just, I love how I'm feeling the energy from you about the receptiveness of being like, look, if they would step in, or if he would step in, it would be, I can feel anyway your receptiveness to that, and like how it would open you up in a different way,
Hmm.
and I think that's important to call out, because that, I mean, well, it's not like a major piece of conflict within your relationship. It is something that comes up, and it's
It's a
it's it-
recurring.
it's
It's a
it's
con.
it's a
Yeah.
recurring thing, and it's something that you called out, or it's something that's on your mind, where you're kind of like, oh, okay, speak to a conflict, this
Hmm.
is a conflict,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't have to be, though, right? You could kind of, you could call it an unnecessary conflict, because if your husband were to choose to like go ahead and take that initiative, step into that role and figure that out, then there's no more conflict, and then not only that, the way that you would receive that from him, he might be surprised about what he gets from that, from like just an unknown energetic exchange, just kind of being
Hmm.
like, wow, like I
Ooh,
did
that
this.
felt good.
Yeah, and like all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like Emily totally, like, yeah, she responded, and I couldn't even imagine how she
Yeah.
responded. So I think I just love that practical example, because it's both like I'm feeling the energy from it, and like the way that you you spoke about it. I just think it's very important, because I was unaware of that kind of energy for a super long time. I didn't show up in my marriage with that, and I was very passive. And my ex-wife drove the, she drove the relationship. She did a lot of stuff, and I know there's a lot of women out there that are in a similar boat, where their partners are kind of like, yeah, she's got it, and like, I don't have to worry about it. And like, sure. I mean, that's nice, to an extent, because yeah, what do you got to worry about? Like, if
Right.
your partner's taking care of it. At the same time, like, just like you said, like, yeah, you could do it. And like,
I do
you do it. Yeah.
but
Like, exactly. I love the but, because that's like, that is like saying everything ahead of that was true and also false at the same time. It's not an and, it's not like it's like,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
like,
it also could be an and.
right.
I can do it. I do it. And it might be nice if I didn't have to do it.
Right. I think the
And
but is
yeah.
stronger though, because
Okay.
it
Yeah,
shows
that's
that
true.
like, it's just like, but I would rather not, like
Yeah.
there's and I'd rather not. It's kind of like, it's inclusive. Everything else is inclusive, but the but like negates it, where it's like, I could, but I'd rather not,
Yeah.
and like
That's true.
it shows the energy of you being receptive to that initiative. And I just think that's so important to really show, because yeah, it's not, to me, it's no longer theory at this point. Like, I have a very practical example with our engagement here to show, like, you see, I mean, this is what we're talking about. Like, here's a woman who owes me no loyalties. First time we've met, we're talking about something in her relationship. And this is, I think anybody watching or listening would be able to feel that kind of like, yeah, like you would be like, yes, like I would love that, and it's a very simple thing. And it's not like your husband would be a dictator. He's just taking initiative. He's taking you into account, and he's doing the thing rather than you doing the thing, because the doing is the masculine. And like, what I loved about that discussion with it is that your reception of that masculine energy, you're like, that's just, I could feel the relaxation, like, from you as you thought about that. You're like, yes, like, like
just,
that would
just take it off my plate. You do it, to use your term. You do it, so I don't have to do it. And then, yeah, I think like, anytime you can do something in its entirety, including the planning and all of the behind the scenes beforehand stuff that goes into it, that will be, I can't think of anybody, we'll go women specific, who would not be very receptive to their partner going, hey, I know this is important to you. I took care of it.
Right. Right.
What?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that would, lots of positive energy from that.
Lots of positive. Yeah. And just, yeah. There's just so much there with that, that I just really love to kind of like, just bring that concrete type of example. And just one of the things that, like, we hear about, it's kind of like, yeah, if a man were to do this, or like show up this way, like, sure, his partner would show up, but like, or would like that, so to speak. But for some reason, this particular exchange is a real, like, practical example of like an everyday, so to speak, kind of thing. It's not like, oh, I wish so and so would fix the sink, or like, like do something. This is which is
also great,
right?
Not to say that's not also good, because that's also good.
Yeah, this is kind of like an everyday, like, kind of experience thing, where it's not like something broke and needs to be fixed. This is more of a practical, like, engagement within the relationship. This is a good example of like, this is something that isn't broken. This isn't something that needs to be fixed. It's just something that needs to be done.
Could be improved.
Yeah, it just needs to be done. It's just something that needs to be done. And while your partner is really good at taking care of it, you're awesome at taking care of it. There's no reason. Yeah, exactly. It'd be so nice to not to. And I just enjoyed the energy of feeling you like relax into that thought. And I love the fact where you were like, just the fact that I posed the question, you were like, that would be interesting. Like, it was something that was kind of like new, where it was like,
yeah, I'd never thought of that.
That's because, and that just shows too, right? Like, and this isn't anything against your husband whatsoever, because this is a lot of men in relationships, I feel, because again, I showed up this way in my marriage, where it's just kind of like, it's so normal for, I think, most women in their relationships to take on that role and to be the doer, that to like even consider that their man would like do that, kind of be like, that really, huh? Like, like, are they able to, like,
Right. Is he capable of talking to his mother and father, or my
yeah,
mother? And yes, he is. He is
he
capable
is.
of texting or calling.
Yeah.
He
And
even called my mother on Sunday for her birthday. I got home, I was out of town. I got home. I was like, "Oh, did you text my mom? It's her birthday today." It's like, "No, I didn't text her, but I called her." I was like,
right.
wow. So he is capable of doing.
Yeah. And so I think what's important is for men to realize that, like, at least I felt it from you, and I felt it within, my current partner, when I show up this way. So like, I know it's a thing, and it's just fun to see it, in somebody
Yeah.
else. That, like, I think men just don't realize, yeah, like, that it's not a mechanical thing. I mean, it's definitely doing something, but you get,
Mhm.
there's a the way that your partner reciprocates or receives that, and like what that means, like, for your relationship, I think they really don't understand. Like, I think they
Mhm.
don't understand the importance of it, and like what it means for them. I think they just kind of view it as like, yeah, I did something, or maybe I did something, like,
Mhm.
for my partner, and they just kind of like write it off. Like, it was like
Right.
a check off the to-do list, like, I did that. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like, it's much deeper than that. So they don't really, because they have that disconnect, they don't understand the depth. They don't have the desire or the drive to keep doing it in other areas and seeing how they can do it in other areas, because to them it's just, yeah, I did
Mhm.
it, mark it off. And it's like, no, man, like, once you understand, like, the reception that you get, the way that opens up your partner, like, you're going to want to keep doing that. You're going to want to keep finding areas in your relationship that you can show up that way, because the more you do that, like, the more open your partner becomes, and that changes the whole dynamic, that changes the whole fabric of the relationship, and you're going to get so much more of what you were looking for from your partner
Mhm.
than you do just by checking off things on your to-do list, because your relationship is not a to-do list. Like,
No,
it's an
hopefully not.
energetic, yeah, exactly, right, hopefully not. It's an energetic exchange. And yeah, I don't know, that's the part
Mhm.
that I really try to go for, to bring an awareness to guys, for sure, because I think women are, at least on some level, definitely more aware of it. Even if they're not consciously aware of it,
Yeah.
they're more in tune with it. And for guys, on a practical level, like, I just want them to know that there's I don't want to call it a reward, but maybe they will
Yeah.
be attached to that word better. But there's a definite benefit. Like, there's a real reason they should take interest in that. And it's not just the fact that they're doing something in the relationship, that they're going to get something out of that too. Like, it's there's a reciprocation from your partner in a lot of ways that a man will enjoy, if he could understand that
Mhm.
that he's actually bringing that out, he's calling that in, like, by showing up that way. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for that,
Yeah.
because that was a great practical example. And I felt it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
thank.
I went, wow, oh, I like that. Okay. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'll
Hmm.
have to see if my husband's in a meeting when we're done chatting, and go have a little chat with him and be like, hey, so here's
Yeah.
an idea, and I'm just going to put that out there and then walk away, because
Hmm.
that conversation doesn't even need to be, I don't need to initiate that conversation for a long time, but
Sure, sure.
just an idea to drop in the bucket and do with it what you will. And I promise I won't be disappointed if you don't do anything with it, but
Hmm.
it might be an interesting little experiment to try.
Yeah, I would totally invite him to try it, because just what I felt from you, if I were your husband, I would be like, how do
Ooh.
I get, yes, thank you, how do
Yeah.
I get how do I get more of that? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Because, and that's the factor I'm trying to get across to men, is like, just pay attention. And like, when you get that, I don't know, as a man, I'm like, how do I get more of that? Like, where
Hmm.
does that come from, and how did that happen? Get curious about that.
How
And then
can I
once you,
replicate that?
yep, you got it. Yeah. And then you'll want to show up that way, like, as often as you probably can. And there's going to be moments it doesn't work out, but you're going to
Right.
want to do it way more than you were. Like, is what I'm trying to say.
There might be moments where you think you're going to get it and you don't,
Right.
for a wide variety of reasons. But like to your point, it's going to happen a lot more than it did before.
If you just didn't.
we have a 4-year-old, and people always say, 3 and 4-year-olds are little scientists. They just keep trying things to see what works and what's going to happen. So just keep trying, be a not so little scientist, and keep trying things just to see what happens. Keep experimenting. Okay, that didn't work. What if I do it in this way? Or what if I do this instead? Or what if I do this on a different day? And
just stay curious, and like, absolutely don't, like, the relationship's not mechanical. And once I think once guys can start to connect with, because I think guys are largely kind of disconnected with their feelings, but they're also not, you know what I mean? Like, they don't connect with them the same way. But I do know that as men, when we receive something from our partners, we know what we enjoy, and that receiving that kind of energy, like, is enjoyable. And so it's kind of like, well, I know that most guys can connect with that. You're going to enjoy that. So like, approach your relationship that way. Like, it's not a mechanical thing. It's not this, it's not a manipulation by the feminine or anything. It's literally just the nature of the energy, right? Like, as the reason you got that response, from your female partner, is because the feminine responds to that. The feminine does not the doing energy. They're the being energy. And you said it too. You're like, if I didn't have to worry about it, and if I could just go and enjoy and just kind of like be in the moment, and like, you just spoke to what the feminine is desiring. Like, and so it's the masculine's nature and kind of our job really to do that to do that. And that's why for you, I think this is a framework that I would work from, is that yes, you're very capable. We both have masculine and feminine energies in us. So we're all capable of doing, and we're all capable of being. Your primary nature is feminine, and I'm assuming, and so it's nice. I feel like that's why you were like, I don't have to be in my masculine. If I could just relax into my feminine and just be like, that's awesome. Like, because you probably don't get to do that as frequently as you would prefer or enjoy. And I know in our society today, we kind of push women to be that way, like to be in their masculine and to be powerful women. And that's good. It's empowering. And at the same time, we don't really,
you got to find the balance.
Exactly that. Yeah. To relax back into the feminine and actually let you be that nature and reconnect with that, across the full spectrum of your being, like in your relationships and things like that, of whatever nature they are. So that's really what I'm on about, for sure, is to just kind of bring awareness to people in general, but specifically men, because I think we're just very unaware of that. Once I think we have an awareness of that, it seems like you would definitely enjoy that. So if as a partner, that's great for you. On your husband's side, that would be great for him. It also reduces conflict. So it's like win.
All the wins.
Right. So like, if I could just bring that awareness to people, that's definitely where I'm trying to go, for sure. And again, it's not manipulation. It's just how the energies work. So I just like to call it like it's principles, just like mathematics, where there's principles, and this is just how this energy works, and just understand it and get an awareness about it, and like win after that, like, go for it. Yeah. So I've been rambling on about it, but I appreciate it. That was a great,
it was a good moment.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm glad I mentioned a few more things at the end, that I was like, oh, here's a couple more things I could throw out. And then that sparked your question. And then that kept going.
That was perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just end it on that. Honestly.
Sounds good.
I want to give you an opportunity to speak to where people can find you, if you would like to talk about that. So certainly. Where can people find you?
So if you're looking to find me for my financial coaching for engaged couples, Dream Big Financial Coaching is my business name, and www.dreambigfinancialcoaching.com. I also have a Facebook page for Dream Big Financial Coaching and an Instagram for Dream Big Financial Coaching, or dreambigfinancialcoaching@gmail.com. So basically Dream Big Financial Coaching for the 18 millionth time.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, thank
Cool.
you, Emily.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
you.
for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being a guest. It was
Yeah,
great.
not a problem.
Your knockout punch for today is to see the real life practical application of how the awareness of masculine and feminine energies can provide more freedom, reduce conflict, and lead to more fun in your relationships. As you saw Emily unfurl and relax in her feminine with the idea that her partner could take on the role to do the thing, to take care of that entire conflict, to take care of that entire piece that created the conflict, you could see how Emily was able to relax into her feminine. You heard her say that it wouldn't even be a conflict anymore if her partner were to take on that role and take care of that need within the relationship. Therefore, her partner would be able to experience more freedom just simply because of the space that would be created without having the conflict anymore. And then obviously that would reduce the conflict by completely removing it. And then also the energy that Emily relaxed into, I would guarantee that her partner would find that much more fulfilling and fun. So more freedom, less conflict, more fun. These masculine and feminine principles are extremely practical in everyday life within a relationship. So that's your knockout punch for today. All right, that wraps up today's episode of the Real Zack Olinger. Thanks again for listening. If you happen to find this episode insightful or valuable, I invite you to pass it along to somebody else, because chances are, if you found it valuable, they will too. If you're on Instagram, you can find me at The Real Zack Olinger. Until next time, everybody. Thanks for listening.